What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. It is Monday, Victory Monday for our Atlanta Falcons. We did go ahead and beat the 49ers yesterday. I believe the score was 29-22, if I remember correctly. A big win for our Atlanta Falcons. I want to say big ups to all of the 49er fans out there. It was a great game. I told you guys in my pregame show that it was going to be an electrifying game. But I also want to tell those 49er fans that left comments on my page, I appreciate your comments. But all I want to say is have that same energy you had prior to this game. Definitely come back to the page. Definitely give a big ups to our Atlanta Falcons. Definitely come and have a little bit of crow this morning. I told you guys that it was going to be a good game, that our Atlanta Falcons had a chance to win this game. And they went right out there and did it, man. Shout out to Matt Ryan. Clutch, man. Driving the team down with a minute and some change on the clock. That's why they call him Matty Ice. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. Him and Julio Jones balled all game. I told you that Julio Jones was going to have a great game. Julio Jones is definitely the best receiver in the NFL. He basically was unstoppable yesterday, dominated, had 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards receiving. Broke Jerry Rice's record, one of Jerry Rice's records, I believe, for 1,000-yard games and with at least 2 touchdowns. Julio Jones is just a monster. Him and Matt Ryan both balled out yesterday and showed why they're the leaders of this football team, and also showed that they're veterans and that they both will be in the Hall of Fame one day. What a great game to remember, and basically it was just a great litmus test that I told you guys to see how much this team has improved over since the bye week, over this last 6-game stretch. I was reading an article on AtlantaFalcons.com that said that the Falcons are 4-2 since the bye week. So we have a winning record since the bye week, and the teams we've beat since the bye week, we beat the Saints on the road, we beat the 49ers on the road, and we beat the Panthers on the road, and we beat the Panthers at home. So big ups to our Atlanta Falcons coming out and dominating. They just played with the hair on fire all day. It's a lot of things I want to touch on in the video. Couple players that I want to touch on that balled out yesterday. I already talked about Julio Jones, talked about Matt Ryan. Big ups to our offensive line. Now we see why we drafted Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry. I really think that this season could have turned out a lot differently if Chris Lindstrom didn't get hurt in that first game, breaking his foot. I told you guys to give these players a chance to develop. We have a ton of young players that are still developing on this team. And I told you this team was turning the corner. This Falcons team is turning the corner, and they're playing good football down the stretch. And this is what you want to see. Like, if we were heading into the playoffs, this is around the time, like in late November, early December, mid-December. This is the time when you want to be getting hot and playing your best football heading into the playoffs. So if we were a playoff team, trust me, nobody in the NFC would want to face us right now. Even the 49ers. We just beat them on their home field. So even if they were the number 1 seed, which we knocked them from being number 1 seed to the 5th seed now, because Seattle's now the number 1 seed, I believe, them in Green Bay. That was a big win for us yesterday, but we've dominated 2 good teams, or beat 2 teams, 2 good teams, 2 good teams on the road. And in the article that I was reading, it talked about we played the Panthers at the time. The Panthers was also, that first game we played against the Panthers after the bye week. At the time, they had a winning record, and they were still in the playoff hunt. So you can't say, well, we lost or won garbage games down the stretch. These games that we are winning, especially for the Saints and the 49ers, those guys want to win those games because they're playing for playoff seeding. So this was a big game for the 49ers, believe it or not. And we went out there and we laid the knockout punch. So shout out to every single player on this team. Austin Hooper had a nice, pretty good game. I told you guys he was going to be one of those players that was going to need to ball out, and he did just that. We weren't able to get the running game really going, but we did a good job of sticking with it. Dirk Cutter kept the game balanced, as I talked about. They used the three-headed monster that I talked about with Brian Hill, Freeman, and Olsen. They put Olsen in on the goal line, and he was able to punch it in for a touchdown. But that's one of the biggest things that I want to talk about too. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but that's one of the things I wanted to talk about too, is us punching the ball in the end zone. Early in the season, we really struggled sometimes in the red zone with punching the ball in, like being able to run the football. But since Chris Lindstrom came back, we're doing a lot better job of running the football and controlling the line of scrimmage. We didn't allow the 49ers to have a bunch of sacks yesterday, like 9 sacks, how we had in that Saints game. This offensive line has looked good the last 2 weeks, or looked a lot better with solidifying the line with Chris Lindstrom. And we didn't even have all of our starters out there because we're still out our left guard, I believe it is. We had Wes Schweitzer out there. He did a solid job yesterday. I still think he's a rotational piece. I don't believe that Wes Schweitzer, unless he proves me wrong down the stretch and, he keeps improving his game, because maybe he's another young player that's still developing, like I was talking about. But the line kept Matt Ryan fairly clean in this game. The 49ers has a ferocious defensive line, as I talked about before this game. And they did come after Matt Ryan some in this game, and they did get pressure on Matt Ryan. But it wasn't like on the Saints where where players were coming from everywhere and where Matt Ryan didn't have a pocket to step up in. Matt Ryan did a good job of rolling out of the pocket. Dirk Cutter did a good job of getting him outside the pocket, and him and Julio Jones was just in rhythm, throwing the ball and catching the ball. It was like pitch and catch out there. Those guys was in rhythm and in sync, and once they got in sync, it was pretty much over for the 49ers. I said when the 49ers kicked that last field goal, I said they left too much time on the clock because it was still like a minute and change left, and we still had one timeout. So big ups to Matt Ryan and being clutch. Big ups to Julio Jones. Big ups to Hooper. Like I said, we really couldn't get the running game going. Like Freeman didn't have a ton of yards, but we still stuck with it. Brian Hill had a big run that popped for like 20-some yards. Quadri Olison got into the mix a little bit. Like I said, the offensive line is looking a lot better now that Chris Lindstrom is finally back, and we can kind of solidify that line, because early in the season, our guard position and both guards were playing pretty bad. Brown was playing bad. Jamon Brown, both of the signees, Brown played bad and Carpenter played bad pretty much all season. The only good game or solid game they played really was against the Saints. But all of the other games, they really, really struggled this year. And that's why we were giving up so many sacks, to the point or to the tune of Matt Ryan getting injured in that Rams game, because so much pressure was put on him. And he's taken so many hits this year. So hopefully we can either draft another guard, or maybe bring in a guard, off of the street, in free agency, or maybe even use Matt Gano, because I really like Matt Gano. I like what I've seen out of him. I'm not too sure why they played Schweitzer over him, maybe for experience reasons, because Schweitzer has played a lot more games and started a lot more games than Matt Gano. But I like what I saw out of Matt Gano in that last game against Carolina. But Wes Schweitzer did do a solid job, and the offensive line held up pretty well against one of the most dominant defense in the league right now in the 49ers. I don't want to hear any excuses about Richard Sherman not playing in this game and Dee Ford, especially from the 49er fans, because I told them in my video before that those guys were not playing. Y'all knew coming in those guys were not playing, and y'all still talked all of that trash and said how y'all were going to blow us out 40-something to 6. I seen one person say, and we had no chance. And I told you guys, any given Sunday, and that's what happened in this game. Now let's jump over to our defense. Man, an excellent game by Grady Jarrett. Getting back there, what a bad call. They took a sack away from him, calling a roughing the passer when it was clearly not roughing the passer. He had a nice blindside hit on Jimmy Garoppolo. They had Jimmy Garoppolo feeling uneasy pretty much all game. They were getting pressure. Vic Beasley, I made a video last week. Y'all definitely got to go check your boy's video out about Vic Beasley. And this is another thing. I don't like to keep saying I told you so, but hey, I told you so. Vic Beasley. I said this was a big game for Vic Beasley. I told you I was looking for a sack fumble or a strip sack from Vic Beasley. He didn't get that strip sack in this game, but he did get a sack in this game. Made a nice move. I think it was on Joe Staley. Joe Staley set out too far, and he acted like he was going to do a speed rush, and he just knifed in on the inside of Joe Staley for a quick sack against Jimmy Garoppolo early in the game. Vic Beasley set the tone. in that first drive with getting that sack on Jimmy Garoppolo. And he was getting pressure pretty much, bringing pressure all day. I'm sorry that Pat McKinley, he actually got hurt in the game, hurt his shoulder again. Not too sure how serious that shoulder injury is, but those guys were getting pressure. Grady Jarrett was getting pressure, and I talked about in my Vic Beasley video, if we can get a running partner, another defensive tackle to play next to Grady Jarrett, that will solidify this defense and really have our defense being a top 10 defense. If we can get another pure nose tackle that can blitz and that can take on double teams and that can fill the hole in the run game, our defense will be a lot better because Grady Jarrett is a problem. He's a problem, man. He wrecks games. Yesterday, he was all over the field playing with his hair on fire, flying around out there. Big ups to Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell. Devondre Campbell just been a turnover machine lately. He had a fumble recovery. And Devondre Campbell's another guy I was telling you guys about in my video, the Vic Beasley video, I talked about it, and in the pregame video, I talked about it, that Devondre Campbell, he's another player playing for a contract. He's enough player that wants to stick around with this team. So he had another big game. He was making tackles. He did a decent job on George Kittle. I told you nobody can guard George Kittle by themselves. George Kittle is probably a top 5 tight end in this game. Some people saying the best tight end in the game. I would get that to Travis Kelce, but he's right in that top upper echelon of tight ends with Austin Hooper and Kittle. He's up there, definitely top 5. Very physical, great hands, and great run after catch, and great blocker. He had a big block on Ricardo Allen, even though Ricardo Allen is tiny. He's not that big of a player. He was able to block him on the goal line, which he should have been, because he outweighs him by probably 70 pounds. But great block by George Kittle, a great game by George Kittle. And I told you guys he was going to be a big factor in this game. But on our side of the ball, on defense, in the secondary, I feel like this player played an excellent game, so I got to give him a shout out. Shout out to Bleedy Wade Wilson. Shout out to Bleedy Ray Wilson played an excellent game. He wears number 33 for the Falcons. He's a cornerback for us. The DB, he had an excellent game, man. I love the way that he is technically sound. He's very tactical, very tech sound. He used great technique. He used very good technique in this game. He almost had a couple picks. He had at least got his hand on, I've seen like 3 footballs where he could have had picks. In the first half, he had one when the guy was running a slant, and they showed a replay of him reading the route tree and knowing what the guy was going to do. I think it was Deebo Samuel who was guarding, and he just did an excellent job with jumping routes. He was all over everybody that he was guarding. He had tight coverage. He's not the fastest guy, but he plays with excellent technique. He's a guy that all of those young guys on the Falcons, as far as our corners and DBs and safeties, they need to watch how the technique that Bleedy plays with. Bleedy plays with excellent technique, and he plays with excellent IQ. He's not the most athletic guy. He doesn't jump the highest. He doesn't run the fastest, but he plays with his head. He has great football IQ. He does a good job. He's always in the right place at the right time. And in this game, he played an excellent game. To me, out of everybody in the secondary, to me, he played with the best coverage for what I saw out of the game. Even though all of the guys played really well in this game, even Isaiah Oliver and Kendall Sheffield, all of those guys had decent coverage in this game, and our linebackers did a good job of covering. I think that Bleedy he was the X factor in this game as far as our DBs. He did an excellent job of stepping in for Desmond Trufant and helping out that young secondary. And he was out there making plays. He was getting his hands on footballs. He was stepping in. He was making his tackles. He just did everything that you need a veteran type player to do. And he definitely did dirty work and did a good job of playing his role. And this is what I was talking about when I was saying early in the season that a lot of these young guys that are now more comfortable, like a Kendall Sheffield and Isaiah Oliver, now that those guys got a bunch of games under their belt, all of these guys look comfortable in their roles. And from here on, I think that the ceiling is high for a lot of these guys. I didn't see a lot of Jordan Miller. We still haven't seen a lot of him, so I'm not sure how good a player he is. But I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Kendall Sheffield and his development, Isaiah Oliver, and Bleedy. Those guys look good out there. Casey is just a baller. Him and Rico Allen, I told you guys also in my pregame show that those are guys. I like that tandem of those two guys at the safety position. Both of those guys played with excellent coverage in this game. We did a solid job of tackling. So big ups to everybody on the defensive side of the ball. Those guys played with their hair on fire all game long. Those guys were very motivated to beat Kyle Shanahan, and I told you that those guys were going to be ready for this test, and they were going to be really ready to pay back Kyle Shanahan for costing us that Super Bowl. And those guys played like they were ticked off about that Super Bowl. So big ups to those guys in this game. It was really a great game for our team. All of those people that was talking about Dan Quinn, you could say you heard it from Jew first. I was the one that was saying keep Dan Quinn around. I was the guy that said bring Dan Quinn back. So definitely y'all definitely have to give me credit for saying bring back Dan Quinn. Now I don't do this channel to get credit and to I don't do this channel to get credit and to throw it back and throw it back in people's face and throw it back into fans' face, because if I'm wrong about something, I will come up here and say I'm wrong. But in this case, you gotta say the Jew was right. I said from Jump Street, give Dan Quinn another season at least. Keep Dan Quinn around. I said give these players time to develop, and if you give these players time to develop, Dan Quinn will put these guys in the right position to succeed. Dan Quinn made the right moves in the bye week to make those switches with our defensive coaches, switching them around, switching Raheem Morris, giving up the play call to Jeff Albrick and Raheem Morris. He made the right moves. He pressed the right buttons with this team. Getting rid of the kicker, Matt Bryant, that was the right move as well. Bringing in Younghoe Koo. Younghoe Koo, arguably on special teams, you could give him the MVP for the second half of the season. He's done an excellent job of coming in and kicking the ball for us, doing onside kicks, recovering a fumble on a kickoff return. He's been the player of the week for special teams 2 times in his short stint here with the Falcons. So he's definitely a player that I see us re-signing in the offseason. But like I said, Dan Quinn pressed all of the right buttons. And if you've seen Arthur Blank at the end of the game yesterday, he was up there with his hands raised up, smiling and cheering, and he looked like a owner that was proud of his team. And that's what I talked about. Arthur Blank, all those people that said Arthur Blank was scared to fire Dan Quinn. He wasn't scared to fire Dan Quinn. He just said, I want to give Dan Quinn the opportune time to fix things. He said that I believe these coaches know how to fight, and he was right. These coaches face adversity, and these coaches have stepped up. It's not just Dan Quinn that stepped up. All of these coaches and the whole team pulled together. And I told you guys before, if you give Dan Quinn time with his team, you give these young players time to develop, because that was the biggest issue I noticed early in the season. These players just needed time to develop, and these players needed time to gel. Because if you realize, this year we pretty much have a whole new secondary. We got rid of Robert Alford. We got rid of Brian Poole. Those were 2 starters. Brian Poole was our nickel corner. Robert Alford was our starting corner with Desmond Trufant. But for a majority of this year, or a big portion of this year, we haven't had Trufant because he's been battling injuries. Isaiah Oliver pretty much is a first-year starter. Kendall Sheffield is a first-year starter. Bleedy is starting to get minutes, but he's kind of like he hasn't played a ton of time, here with the Falcons. So these guys just needed time to gel. Now that they gel, and then early in the season also, we had Kamal Ishmael playing that safety position, and they finally realized that we needed to move Casey back. But it took time, and we had to get tape on it to see guys play those positions before we knew what we had. So these guys have put the pieces together. They put the puzzle together. So that's all you can ask. And this is the reason why Arthur Blank didn't want to fire Dan Quinn in the middle of the season. And this is the reason why he needed to give Dan Quinn time to turn things around, because Dan Quinn has definitely turned things around. I don't care how you guys may have said it may have been by hook or by crook, meaning he didn't actually do it because he gave up the defensive play calls. It doesn't matter. He, as the head coach, you're like the CEO of a business. You have to know how to delegate instructions and delegate different tasks to your other staff, your other managers, your other shift managers. So he did a good job of delegating the workout to the right coaches, and they have put it together. All of these coaches now have put it together. If I was Dan Quinn or if I was Arthur Blank, I would bring this same staff back. I don't know if Dan Quinn wants to make Raheem Morris or Jeff Albrecht the defensive coordinator. That's what I would do. But I like what I'm seeing out of this team. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the head coaches. I like how the players are responding and has responded to all of the coaches, not just Dan Quinn, but all of the coaches that have been moved around. I like how these players have responded. And all of these guys, these young guys, have made improvements since the start of the season. And that's all you can ask for out of a coach. What I wanted to see and what I believe Arthur Blank wanted to see was the team going to continue on that downward spiral, on that mudslide, and were we going to be 1-10 or 1-13 or were we going to be able to turn it around? And in this second half, like I told you guys, we have a winning record in this second half of the season. We're 4-2 in the last 6 games since the bye week, which is a winning record. So I don't think it's nothing else you could really ask for. Now, if I'm wrong, if next year we come back and Dan Quinn comes back and we start losing again and we have another losing season, then talk to me about getting rid of Dan Quinn. But until then, if it's not broke, don't fix it. These guys are beating quality opponents. We are beating playoff teams. And we're beating playoff teams in the NFC, teams where we would actually be playing against if we were in the playoffs right now. And we're not only beating these teams, we're beating these teams on the road. We beat the 49ers, who was the #1 seed coming into the game, in San Francisco. We beat the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. And another thing that we're not looking at as the Falcons fans also is that the second game, the rematch on Thanksgiving where we played the Saints, if we would have had Julio Jones, I'm telling you, that game would have been a lot different, because you see the big difference it makes with having Julio Jones on the field. Julio Jones opens up everything for everybody else. And if we would have had Julio Jones in that game against the Saints on Thanksgiving night, it would have been a big difference, because that game came down to the last possession where we had a chance to drive the ball downfield, just like this game against the 49ers. And I'm telling you right now, the Saints defense is not better than the 49ers defense. The 49ers defense is better than the Saints defense, and we put up a good game. So big ups, like I said, to Dan Quinn for being able to turn things around. Big ups to our Atlanta Falcons in this game for winning this game. But y'all tell me what y'all think about in the comments. I definitely will be back doing some more videos this week. But this victory feels so sweet. I was joking around yesterday after the game with some of my friends. They're not actually Falcons fans. They're like my brothers and my cousins. And we have like a group chat. And they've been ragging me about my Falcons all season. So I had to hit them with the Kevin Garnett. If you remember when they won the finals, when he said, anything's possible. Anything's possible. He was screaming. I had to put that in the chat yesterday after the game, because that was for all of those 49er fans that said that we couldn't do it, and for anybody in the media that said the Falcons couldn't do it. Anything is possible. I told you guys, man, if it's any given Sunday, we get paid just like anybody else get paid. And this Atlanta Falcons team played with a lot of heart, and this team hasn't quit. All of those people early in the season were saying this team is quit on Dan Quinn. I said, these players are not giving up. We have some dogs on this team, and it showed in this game, man. So big ups to all of the Falcons fans out there. Y'all enjoy this victory. This has been the best victory of the season. That definitely was a great Christmas gift. Hopefully we can end this in the season. Next week we have the Jaguars at home. Hopefully we can knock them off. And then after that, hopefully we can knock off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then after that, hopefully we'll end the season with a 7-9 record. But with that being said, this has been your boy Jew. I'll have another video for y'all a little bit later on in the week. But like I said, man, rise up. That's all we know how to do, man. I appreciate y'all. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please like, please share, please subscribe to the channel. And I'll holler at y'all in the next video, man. All right, peace.